This conference will now be recorded.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the South Whitehall Township Planning Commission meeting. Everyone, please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Dave, would you like to do the roll call?
Trevor Dombach.
Here.
Tim Dugan.
Here.
Todd Farringer. Brian Height.
Here.
Diane Kelly.
Here.
Mark Luth.
Here.
David Wilson.
Here.
Thank you. Sufficient for a quorum.
Hey, meeting rules.
Rules for participation and etiquette during planning commission meetings. For an orderly meeting wherein all attendees may be able to fully participate, we ask that you adhere to the following rules. In order that both in-person and remote attendees may hear all comments or questions, all in-person attendees will be required to use microphones at all times. We request that remote attendees please mute your microphone or telephone to avoid background noise that may cause interference in the meeting and make it difficult to hear for others to hear. Staff may mute the microphones of remote attendees if needed. Public questions and comments will be taken at periodic intervals throughout the agenda. We will start with no time limits, but the Planning Commission Chairman may impose a time limitation if there are many questions or the meeting is running short on time. For in-person attendees, please raise your hand to be recognized, then move to the podium when directed. Turn the podium microphone on and state your name, address, and comment or question. Please turn the podium microphone off. I have to update those rules. We don't have a switch on the podium microphone anymore, so you don't have to turn it on or off. For remote attendees, the chat box feature will be active throughout the meeting. If you have a comment or question, please type your full name and address into the chat box. When you are recognized and so directed, please unmute your microphone and state your comment or question. Mute your microphone when done. For those who are accessing the meeting by phone only, staff will periodically ask for caller comments and unmute any callers. Callers must identify their name and address prior to making a comment. Just a note on that rule, we've been having trouble with callers and the unmute function, so that may not function properly. So if you're online and you're calling in, we recommend using GoToMeeting via a smartphone or a computer. Your cooperation and adherence to these rules will ensure an orderly and respectful meeting. Thank you.
All right, thank you. I would also like to take note of township staff and consultants here tonight. We have Lynn LaBar, minutes and notes taker, Chris Stroller, long range planner, Dave Manhart, director of community development, Laura Harrier, zoning officer, Jennifer Alderfer. I'd like to congratulate Jennifer. She's now director of legal services with the township. She used to be at Zader Law right next door, so she's not moving too far. And Aaron Bett, township engineer with the Pidcock Company. Also in the audience, we have Greg Adams, our Mist planner. Great to see you here, Greg. All right, we're on agenda item number 3, review and approval of the September 12th meeting minutes. Does anyone have any questions, comments for the meeting minutes?
I'll make a motion to approve as submitted.
I'll second.
Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None opposed, so moved. All right, we're on agenda item number 4, subdivision review. We have 3 projects for review tonight. The first one is Parkland School District, New Operations Center, Phase 4. Before we get into that project, company I work for does some work for the school district, so I'll be recusing myself from any votes. All right, we can start with the township staff presentation.
This is an application to further develop the property located at 2619 Stadium Drive. The plan proposes an additional 21,459 square feet of impervious surface for the expansion of the northern parking lot on the 8.7 acre parcel. Property is served by public water and is zoned rural residential 2. Parkland School District is the owner and applicant. We've seen various versions of this. This is the 4th phase, so they're looking to do some parking lot improvements. We are recommending approval based on conditions. The conditions: prior to plan recording, the applicant should execute subdivision improvement, security maintenance, indemnification agreements. Prior to plan recording, the applicant shall address to the satisfaction of the township engineer, the township water and sewer engineer, the geotechnical consultant, the public works department, public safety commission, landscapes and shade tree, parks and recreation board, community development department, township zoning officer. Then we're on condition 11 and 12, which are conditions that carried over from the previous phases. These are conditions that have the school district monitor the intersection at Limekiln and 309. There was some concern about the timing of these improvements in relation to the betterment project. So going to keep an eye on it as a team, and if anything comes up, we'll have it addressed. 13, applicant addresses all issues and obtains all approvals deemed necessary by the Board of Commissioners. Applicant shall execute a declaration of covenants and easement for maintenance of stormwater management facilities. And then the applicant shall reconcile all open invoices for engineering and legal services prior to plan recording. With that, the applicant is, engineer. Sorry, Aaron.
That's okay. As mentioned in our November 7th memo to the township, a preliminary final land development review was performed by our office. The initial plan submission for this phase was in September 2024 and shows the expansion to the northern parking area with an additional underground stormwater management facility and the expansion of the far southern parking area surrounding the existing building. Some comments to note from our plan or review pertain to the clarification of each phase on the site plan, minor stormwater management comments, and confirmation from PPL that allows those additional facilities within their easement. As listed in the packet, there are a total of 9 waiver requests for this phase of the project. We note that waiver request 1 regarding a separate preliminary and final submission is not required. The remaining waiver requests have been granted for this project through the previous phases, with the exception of the Limekiln Road frontage improvements request, which was previously recommended as a deferral. At this time, conditioned upon addressing the remaining comments contained in our memo, we can recommend engineering approval.
Thank you. All right, applicant, please do your presentation.
Thank you, Scott McMacken with Cowan Associates. I'll be brief since this is, I think, the third time we've been before the Planning Commission with this. I know in previous applications there was some discussion about the northern parking lot and trying to maximize the amount of parking that's available on the site, mainly for overflow parking for the football field across the street. So over the past year or so, behind the scenes, we've been working with PP&L to try to come up with a design that they're comfortable with and come to an agreement to be able to expand the parking lot, that northern parking lot, which is the green parking lot on the screen, to be able to expand that to provide some additional capacity on the lot. And we were able to do that over the past several months. We're at the point where the school board is going to be signing the agreement next week at their board meeting, and then PP&L is going to be signing the agreement as well. So pretty much have it all in place, and therefore we're coming before you essentially to have approval for that parking area to the north to be expanded. Everything else on the site was previously approved by the township with previous land developments. So we're in agreement with all the conditions that were outlined, and all the review letters are well complies. We're just requesting an updated land development approval and the waivers for this final phase.
Thank you. Does anyone have any comments, questions? We'll have to go through the waivers again.
Where are the waivers in the packet?
They're all the way at the, I think our waiver request letter, I think is at the very end of the
It's
packet.
not in my packet, right here. That's why I'm asking our staff.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Sorry.
You seem to have
So,
abbreviated
yeah,
packets.
the packets up top were just the memos.
That's all it was. In the future, if anyone wants anything additional.
Well, as a member of this planning commission, I think it's important that we have the documents that we're voting on so we can reference them. Thank you.
It's on page 84, if you're looking in your packet.
don't
Yeah,
have the
I know,
packet.
I know.
That's them, right?
All right. Well,
Can you guys see them?
yeah, we have them pulled up. While we're looking through them, if anyone has any questions, please ask away. But it seems like the gist of this phase was to provide more parking. Because you provided more parking, seems like you had to do some additional stormwater for that additional paved parking. Was there anything other than that? That's what I got from looking at the plan.
Yeah, that was really, I know that there was some discussion, I think at this level and then also at the commissioners about trying to provide more overflow parking for those, particularly the football Fridays, but trying to provide some additional overflow parking as much as possible. And we committed to that, I believe, with the initial phase and then for phase 3. And we were continuing to do that throughout the previous applications, but we were able to, finally come to an agreement with PP&L, and therefore we were able to come back, with the follow through that I believe the township was requesting, and I believe the school district would like to have as well.
Are these the only 5 waivers requested that are on the screen?
Yes, and then there's the waivers that carry over with the other, those waivers still apply.
Yeah, so number one, my understanding is not applicable.
Yeah, number 1 is not applicable, and I believe number 5 would be a deferral instead of a waiver, and then 2 through 4 and 6 through 9 are the waiver requests.
Yeah, 2 and 3 are very frequent waiver requests. 4, I get what they're saying. They're out there already building, so this new adoption of a plan might not be recorded, but you're out there building, and
Right,
time is money and cost. So if they can build it,
right.
as long as they met the conditions. 5 is a deferral, and what was 6 through? Those are
6 through 9 is on the next page. They're more technical in nature. They were dealing with some of the,
those was those given before? Were we giving these waivers out before?
yes, they were with both the initial phase and phase 3 as well.
But do we need to vote again on those, or they're carrying through?
I think we might as well, probably should just vote on them again.
But they're essentially repeats from before.
They're essentially repeats, yes.
We did the same
Yeah.
for phase 3 as well.
Okay.
Because they're applicable to a new phase, I would suggest voting on them again. And I think if you have the list in front of you, it would probably be helpful to go one by one down through the list and explain what each one is, and then they could vote on them individually.
Yep. So number 6, regarding the basin bottom.
Yeah, we have the basin bottom designed as a dry extended basin, so the basin bottom is flat. So we're requesting a relief from that 2%.
This is the same basin
The southern,
previous-
the southern basin, yes.
from the previous phase that we voted on already. Okay.
Number 7 is regarding the minimum pipe size of 15-inch diameter. In some of these underground basins, we have pipes that are smaller than that, 6 and 8 inches, tying into some of the roof drains. So that would technically require a waiver. The next one is regarding the permeability rate, and we're requesting a waiver from that. Again, the southern basin, the above ground basin, is proposed not to be an infiltration basin based on the testing. And then same thing with number 9 with regard to the groundwater recharge. And that's for that southern above ground basin. The below ground basins that are underneath the parking lots will be infiltration basins.
You have the soil scientist letters, confirming the rates and whatnot. And
Yes, we did the infiltration testing, and the township geologist did review all that information.
We deferred to the township geotech for, it would be 6, 8, and 9. And in their review letter, they agreed that this would be recommended.
Okay.
You want to start at 1 and start voting?
Well, we want to open it up to the audience. Is there anyone in the audience that has any comments, questions, concerns, input regarding this project? No? Is there anyone online? No one's online. Great, well, we'll move forward with the waivers and referral requests. We'll just go one by one.
Are you agreeing to strike number 1 from your waiver request letter?
Yes.
Okay, so we can start with number 2.
All right, okay, one of us I'll read through them. Number 2 is section 312-12B20, requiring location, character, and elevation of any building within 100 feet of the track. Given the minor nature of the development, a waiver of this requirement is requested to use aerial photographic information. Those in favor of the waiver?
Make a motion to.
Yeah.
Oh,
I'll second
sorry.
the motion.
Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I'll abstain. Any opposed? None opposed. So moved. Waiver request number 3, section 312, 12B, 15, and 21, requiring location of contours and sidewalks, trails, driveways, streets, easements, etc. within 400 feet of the tract. Given the minor nature of the development, a waiver of this requirement is requested. Does anyone want to make a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. I'll abstain. Those opposed? None opposed? So moved. Waiver request number 4, section 312.13F3 and 312.43, requiring plans to be recorded prior to the issuance of a building permit. Given the minor nature of the development with site improvements previously approved, a waiver of this requirement is requested to allow the issuance of building permits. Do we have a motion?
I'll make a motion to
Second.
approve.
Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. I'll abstain. Any opposed? None opposed. So moved. Just to confirm, number 5, you're requesting a deferral.
Correct.
So a deferral from section 312.26A and 312.35B requiring property frontage improvements. Additional improvements along Stadium Road are proposed. A waiver from Lime Kiln Road is requested. The school district prefers not to encourage pedestrian traffic to Lime Kiln Road. Do we have a motion?
The motion's for deferral. Is that correct?
Correct.
Yes.
I'll make that motion to defer.
A second.
Those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
I'll abstain. Those opposed? None opposed, so moved. Waiver request, section 312.39D2, requiring base and bottom to be 2% longitudinal slope. Due to stormwater management design requirements, dry extended basin, a waiver is requested. Do we have a motion?
Make a motion to grant the waiver.
Second.
Those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
I'll abstain. Those opposed? None opposed, so moved. Waiver request number 7 per this letter, section 312-39G, requiring storm pipes to be a minimum 15-inch diameter. Due to the stormwater management design requirement, smaller pipe size is requested. Do we have a motion?
Make a motion to grant the waiver.
Second.
Those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
I'll abstain. Any opposed? None opposed, so moved. Waiver request number 8, section 296-9J, requiring permeability rate of 1 × 10⁻⁻⁷ centimeters per second or less. Based on on-site soils testing and analysis, infiltration is possible on this site. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Right, those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. I'll abstain. Any opposed? None opposed, so moved. Waiver request number 9, section 296-9K, requiring groundwater recharge not to be permitted in limestone geology. Based on site soils testing and analysis, groundwater recharge is possible on this site. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Right, those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I'll abstain. Any opposed? None opposed, so moved. All right, so those are the waivers. Are you requesting anything else tonight?
If the board feels fit, we would request a preliminary final recommendation to the board of commissioners.
I'll make that motion to approve.
I'll second.
Those in favor?
Aye.
I'll abstain. Any opposed? None opposed. So moved.
Thank you for your time. Appreciate it.
All right, we're on agenda item number 4B. Tillman Holdings LLC, Coordinated Development Phase 1. Mr. Manhart, would you like
Yes.
to give the staff presentation?
This is an application to further develop the property located at 4750 West Tillman Street. Plan includes the expansion of the enclosure of an existing covered area, the establishment of additional uses on the 8.5 acre tract. The property is zoned highway commercial, special height limitation. The owner and applicant is Tillman Holdings LLC. At this point, well, just to give a little bit of background, the project was subject of a waiver from land development, so the Planning Commission did not see that, and that was for GoPuff to go into the space that is now the advanced auto. So this application is really to formalize what's out on the site and then include there's an area to the rear of where the advanced auto is going. So that's really the intent of this application. Because they have additional plans for that. So this is really the starting point. At this point, we're not making a recommendation to approve. There's some cleanup that we have for the plans, but they are asking for clarification on some waivers, and particularly the discussion about the frontage improvements. With that, I can hand it over to Erin.
As mentioned in our November 7th memo to the township, a preliminary final plan review was performed by our office. The plan was initially submitted in July 2024, and we have provided comments to the applicant through each iteration. Some comments to note from our memo include Tillman Street frontage improvements, such as curb and sidewalk, clarification of parking facilities, and coordination with PennDOT for the traffic analysis and existing permitted driveway. As Dave has mentioned, the applicant is working with the township to resolve some issues, and our review is specific to the improvements shown on sheet 2. The comments we have provided pertain to land development items, with the exception of parking requirements through zoning, which we understand may result in revisions to site configurations. The applicant provided 9 waiver requests, and in their response letter indicated that they would like to discuss these items with the Planning Commission. Engineering approval is not recommended at this time, as the remaining comments to be addressed may impact the overall project scope of the project.
Is there a plan, like a colored plan that shows the building addition in red? Great. Thank you, Aaron. The applicant may do your presentation.
Okay, thank you. My name is Julie Wagner Burkhart, and I am a land use attorney with Stevens & Lee. I represent the applicant, Tillman Holdings, LLC. And as was stated, there was a previous land development plan for this site that was recorded actually back in 1983. And following that, there was a coordinated development plan, site plan, that was approved in 2022, but that plan was not ever recorded. So what you have in front of you today really represents, and we're calling it the Phase 1 Preliminary Final Land Development Plan. But there's a lot going on with this plan. There's some cleaning up of some past permitting discrepancies. There's also the documentation of some uses that weren't really documented before, although there is various forms of permitting that occurred. And then in addition, we are doing the expansion of what was the GoPuff space, but will now be occupied by Advanced Auto. There's also an additional future tenant space provided for on this plan. And the configuration between what was GoPuff and is now advanced auto. And what was shown as future space and is now future space has changed slightly. There's also an addition of an ATM facility in the beginning, in the front area of the parking. And so what you have before you, and what is a work in progress, to really kind of get all of those elements straightened out and in compliance with the ordinance. And we did receive last Friday a pretty comprehensive packet of review letters from the engineer and Public Works, and we're getting through all of that. We're not here to ask for any kind of action on the plan tonight, as was stated, but we do need a little bit of guidance on not only some waiver requests, but just generally what the appetite is of the Planning Commission relative to this plan, given that there are many existing features here already. And so some of what would typically be required under SALDO has kind of been addressed. And a lot of these features that are shown on the plan are existing conditions. And I'll have the engineer kind of give you a little bit more detail on some of that. I'll also mention that this plan is the subject of a zoning hearing board hearing that is also, it's been continued, but it will be continued now that we have some of these reviews and we know where we stand from a zoning perspective, so that we can combine the special exception relief that's needed to cover the outdoor storage area that you'll see here, but which will be addressed as a phase 2 plan. And there are trucks that are anticipated or have been and are anticipated to be permitted to park in the rear of this project. That requires a special exception approval for outdoor storage. That's in the works. We did receive a zoning review letter as part of what we got on Friday, and we do believe that we're going to be able to comply with that zoning review and get this plan in compliance and won't need any additional relief or pretty minimal relief. So once we have that worked through, we will get back on the agenda to conclude that zoning hearing board hearing and hopefully obtain the special exception relief that we need for that outdoor storage area, as well as if there is any kind of minor adjustments due to some of the setbacks and so forth. But as I said, I'm going to turn it over to Bill Erdman, who is the project engineer, to try and highlight some of what we would like to get your input on tonight.
Thank you, Julie.
Sure.
With respect to the waivers, and for a moment we'll set aside the frontage improvements, I think that's a whole separate conversation. Two things I wanted to point out on this. I listened to the previous presentation, and a number of the waivers were predicated on the idea that there's minimal amount of work. In this particular situation, there's minimal amount of work, but it's all existing for the most part. When you look at that red area that was referred to earlier, that appears to be a building expansion. For those that are familiar with the property, that was actually an overhang area from the original lumber company. So they basically just fitted out an area that was already there. So a big point in that regard is that from an impervious surface standpoint, it already had a roof over it, so there was no impact. What we wanted to get a sense of, and as Julie said a moment ago, we're not asking for approval, we're asking for some guidance from the Planning Commission as to how to go forward. There's a number of the requirements in the ordinance, such as the requirement to show things within 400 feet of the property. Other aspects have to be shown within 100 feet. We're hoping the Planning Commission will view this from the standpoint that with an existing facility, with the exception of that enclosure and an ATM in the front, there's essentially nothing happening on the property. It's very minimal. So this is existing, everything around it is existing, so information like that isn't necessarily usable for going forward. There's existing lighting in the parking lot. We'd be looking for some relief on that in the event that the current requirements would dictate additional lighting. That facility has been there since the 1980s. The parking lots are illuminated. I can only assume there have been no problems over the many years with existing lighting, but I'm fairly confident that the current lighting requirements are going to be different than was there in 1983. And you can appreciate if we have to start putting lighting in the parking lot, we end up tearing the parking lot up to be able to run wires and everything else. So we're looking for the sense of the Planning Commission as it relates to those type of waiver requests to be able to move forward, and then we'll finalize that in the submission for another meeting to say specifically what they are. But there's comments in there, or excuse me, there's issues with respect to E&S controls, storm drainage, contour lines. Nothing is being done in that regard. That, as I said before, that enclosure area is already impervious. It was impervious after, with the exception of a very, very small bump out on the corner. The footprint of the building is identical, and that bump out was actually put on previous pavement. So that was also impervious. So we have no storm drainage issues, would not require contours, wouldn't require E&S controls, and so forth. So we're just looking for kind of a thumbs up, thumbs down that the Planning Commission would be receptive to making those kind of recommendations, and then we'll finalize that in the next submission.
We see the waivers.
Yeah, and I read some of the engineering review, and of course it would make sense had this been a brand new project, but you know, I don't see the need to rip up an entire parking lot to put curbing in a parking lot or put new lighting in a parking lot. Honestly, I can't imagine why you would do anything other than what you've done to this point, separate from the frontage requirements, which like
that's a separate conversation.
Conversation, yes. But why you'd add additional stormwater mitigation or lighting. I've seen the work being done there, so I mean, I don't see why you would do anything more than what you've just done.
And David, to your question, I can quickly mention what the waivers are in the engineer's letter, just briefly so you know what they are.
Yeah, because it does list the saldo sections. If you
Right.
could indicate what that section is, and maybe Aaron just confirm.
Do you have that?
Yeah, I have in front of me.
Okay.
Okay, so the first one is the Saldo 312-12A6 and 312-12A7, which requires certification for water and sewer. We have a planning module approval letter for this project from the 1980s. We have provided a projection of sewer and water use, the original approval for the planning module, which also implies that the township approved the use of the facilities for the project, for the building. And we are less than that 1,000 gallons that was approved. We're at about 650. So we are below the amount of water that was approved back in the 80s by the township as well as DEP. Submission of plans to PennDOT, that's in the list. We will make a submission to PennDOT. So that would, as I said, we'll fine tune this later on, but we will make the submission to PennDOT. The whole purpose of that submission is to hopefully receive confirmation that a PennDOT permit for a low volume driveway that was issued back in the 1980s is still valid. And we've generated some traffic counts to justify that, but we will hopefully satisfy PennDOT that it's acceptable since it connects to a state highway. I mentioned contours earlier, showing contours. That would be appropriate, as Mark just said, if you're doing anything, but there's really no grading to speak of that has to be done. Provision of lighting is the one that we talked about a moment ago. Drainage pattern maps, storm drainage, E&S controls, and storm sewers and drainage facilities. They can all in one group be dealt with. We're not doing anything at all that impacts drainage in any way, shape, or form. So it would seem reasonable for us that waivers could be granted for those sections. And then the street tree issue, the Landscape and Shade Tree Commission commented that they were not in favor of a waiver, but then said, but we'd be okay if the trees were moved closer to the detention pond. We will make that change. They asked for some trees to be moved closer to the detention pond. I think from an aesthetic standpoint, they feel that's better, and it might appear to be street trees along frontage. We're perfectly okay with doing that.
That will require an adjustment to the waiver language
Right.
that we proposed.
So that's kind of a characterization of what they are. Again, with the exception of the frontage, we'll have a separate conversation on that.
I guess we can sort of just go line by line, and we can start with A.
Chairman, before we do, I just had a question on timing. So I'm understanding we're here tonight because of the addition of the advanced auto, and then the parking lot in the back will be a future phase. Is that correct?
Correct.
So the portion that is red that is not hatched, the future proposed tenant toward the back of this type of building.
That is also included.
That is included.
That is included in this phase one development. And it's already, it was part of the initial roof enclosure. So it's also been fitted out. There is no tenant identified yet for that space, but that is being proposed as part of this development.
So I'm familiar with the building from the front, but not necessarily down this side of the building when we're talking about lighting. Could you speak to currently what lighting is? I understand there's lighting in the actual front parking lot, which absolutely makes sense.
That's correct.
From the 80s. But as you go down this side aisle and then behind the building where it makes an L shape, so what type of lighting is currently on the site to the back of that building where the proposed parking space?
As you said, there's some lighting in the parking lot in the front. There's several light standards in the parking lot in the rear. And as part of this expansion along the side of the building, there are light packs, if you will, on the building, along the building to illuminate that new area, if you want to call it that, along there. So that would be illuminated by virtue of light packs that are on the physical building.
So just to confirm, the parking spaces to the very rear, there are lights in the parking area?
Yes,
now?
there are several standards there. I think there's 3 or 4 in the front and maybe 2 in the back.
Yeah, so it does look like it says proposed wall pack. So that's essentially, instead of a light pole, you have a light mounted on the building
Right.
wall at an elevated height. Serves.
Yeah, I couldn't tell you exactly, but I'm thinking there's maybe as many as a half a dozen, because as I recall driving by, Joe goes there often, they're along the length of that building to illuminate that whole side
Thank you.
and around the back.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
So there actually is lighting proposed for that.
There is lighting proposed, but as I said a moment ago, I have little doubt that if you apply the current standards in terms of lumens within the parking lot, these standards in the parking lot may not adequately illuminate the parking lot. That's the primary concern, and that's what we're trying to avoid. In terms of the building, those wall packs will illuminate that part of the building where people will be going to the various facilities. So we would modify it to indicate that wall packs are on the building. We're asking for relief with respect to providing any additional lighting within the parking lot.
Yeah, I mean, this is about like this low impact type of development concerning what's existing already. All they did was basically enclose an overhang.
Is that already partially enclosed?
It is enclosed.
It is.
Yeah, I thought it was. Yeah.
There was a little bit of a bump out to it as opposed to what was just part of the roof line. The little section in red that is sort of blocked out and kind of bumps out, that was new.
Yeah, I thought that was built already.
Yeah, that small rectangle on the right side there where you can see the line through the middle, that rectangle actually represents an area that's outside from outside or not underneath the previous roof.
If I could just jump in real quick. So the advanced auto is the part that is being permitted under the GoPuff waiver of land development. What was new is this future tenant area. So that is what's going to be subject of this, is requiring a land development approval to get into that piece. So that's kind of how those phasings will work, and that's why you're seeing advanced auto and a pending CO, and that's will be coming shortly. It'll be open soon. But that future tenant area is the part that's subject of this land development.
Just the back L, if you will.
Yeah, the unhatched area,
Right.
which may be hard to see yet.
Like across the
From
street,
there, right.
across the street when you had vacant stores and they put in Orange Theory and those gyms that were never there. I mean, did we require them? I mean, now granted, they didn't enclose an area, but I mean, what did we require them in terms of land development to do?
We wouldn't require land development.
Yeah.
So part of the reason for requiring land development was there were some changes made from the GoPuff plan that we needed verification on parking, circulation, and then there were some other issues, especially moving the project forward if they're going to pursue the outdoor storage of the pending zoning hearing. This plan has to be kind of clean before they can get adequate evaluation of the zoning relief required.
And some of the comments I read make sense, truck turning templates, fire truck templates. But to go and sort of retrofit this parking lot any differently because of what's here now would seem to me a bit of an overreach at this point.
Yeah, some of it, and after this meeting and we get the direction, or the applicant gets the direction, we intend to have a staff meeting and kind of talk about whether we need to register nonconformities and things like that. So when we bring it forward again, we have a clear understanding of what is existing and what's new, and moving that forward.
And in terms of the lighting, I mean, the area in red, which is already built, they're proposing wall lighting. So that area is going to be lit up. Existing parking lots have been lit up for the past, I don't know how many years. I'm not 30 years. So I'm not sure if, if it's really fair to make them rip up their parking lot and install additional lights. I don't know historically if there's been any issues there.
I'd even ask that question
lighting.
with regards to stormwater. Is this one of these sites that's underwater? No, I don't think so. I don't think I've ever seen it. It's above.
It's a high.
It's that great. It's above
very
grade.
high
So
above grade.
I don't think, again, additional, attenuation or mitigation to stormwater, at least for this phase, would be necessary.
I know of no stormwater concerns on Tillman or the adjacent properties.
Yeah.
And as far as the issue of the lighting, public safety was involved in the review, and I didn't see anything to indicate that the police department raised concern to say we've had issues in the past with those parking lots. I think it's been successful over these 30-some years since it was first built. The lighting is presumably adequate, is my point.
Related to the stormwater, is it fair to say you've confirmed it's all functioning on site and conveying where it needs to go? There's no clogging or pipes
That is correct.
cracked or bent?
Yes, there have been no storm drainage issues on the property or in adjacent properties that we're aware of. So the answer to your question is yes, everything is functioning adequately. I don't know if you can see it, but there's inlets along the lower part of that property adjacent to the shopping center. That takes it into the storm sewer system, and then from there, I imagine it goes through the shopping center.
And it's a net zero in terms of impervious.
It's a net zero in terms of impervious, that's correct.
And you indicated you're going to talk to PennDOT about your HOP.
That's correct.
And you think it'll still qualify as low volume?
Yes, it will. And I will say that the township engineer, we did an analysis and a projection of future traffic. Well, let me back up. We did a traffic count for the existing facility. And I can tell you, and anybody that's worked with the IT manual, we looked at the IT manual and came up with thousands of trips out of that building. And it's obviously because of uses that are not appropriate to what's there. So we did a traffic count at the driveway on what's in the existing buildings between Ollie's and Just Furniture. And then we did a projection for these small areas that are being added to the building. We based it on employees. The township engineers indicated they prefer us to base it on square footage, which actually results in more traffic. We have reevaluated that in the context of the advanced auto, because that does appear to be a low number. In the case of I'll call them the mom and pop storefronts, we feel the employees are appropriate. If you bring all that together, it is still less than 1,500 average daily trips, and that qualifies for a low volume driveway. So the answer to your question, long answer, but the answer is yes.
And we're going to make sure that PennDOT agrees with that methodology.
Yeah, and I think that's a good way to do it. I mean, if we're getting the actual trip counts for the actual building, that's much better than using, ITE estimates for the existing portion at least.
I agree. PennDOT will agree with that, especially because it's an existing building.
Mm-hmm.
And you're correct. I've known you a long time. 1,500 trips. Once you get above that, triggers a whole bunch of other things. And with an existing use like this, now if you were changing the whole use and putting a call center in, that would be a whole nother conversation. But you seem like you're maintaining. Do you have like a preferred future tenant? Like what potentially could go in there that
I would defer to
You
Joe
know,
on
I'm
that in
trying
terms
to
of.
avoid like a
I'll
superintendent
answer you.
use, you know.
We've been approached by a medical user who wanted to use it for a pool, therapy pool. I just met with them last week. I don't know how much further that conversation will go, but it's not where they bring a lot of people in there.
It sounds like you're cognizant of the impacts that,
Yes.
that right, whatever that tenant's going to be, and I hope you fill it soon, is that it's not so impactful that it gets Mr. Erdman involved with PennDOT. So, thank you.
I mean, let's look at it realistically. Any high visibility tenant doesn't want to be in the rear of a building, so. It's
Good point, Mark, yeah.
Yeah, it's got its.
But somebody who specifically is going to get therapy,
Yeah.
aquatherapy would be the idea.
And did I read, I don't have it here because I didn't print them out because sometimes I print them and then they're here. But reading the review letter, I thought I read that they were going to require interior curbing on this parking lot around where the grass meets the macadam.
That is a comment, and I should have mentioned that, but that would be also hand in hand with the
to rip
idea
up
of,
an existing parking lot that.
yeah, to tear up the parking lot to put it in.
That sort of accident. I mean, again, I'll just refer to this phase, not the future truck parking and all the rest of it. But as far as what the red indicates here, I think that they have any need to go and rip up an entire edge of a parking lot and put stall curbing when it's been operating like this for 30 years.
In response to that, we do understand that. I believe it's in our letter. It would just be like a waiver request that would be made.
Yeah. It's in the land development, so they got to put it in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then in regards to the driveway as well, obviously PennDOT rules the driveway, so we understand that they would agree with the study and we'd move forward that way.
Mhm.
Nice because we now have a middle turning lane that was engineered into the new improvements made to the roadway.
Oh.
Yeah,
So
almost done.
access is a lot easier and ingress and egress is a lot easier now.
And there's more to come.
Pardon?
There's more to come
More to
along
come.
that stretch.
From the bridge, I think. Yeah.
And from the interchange at 309 and Tillman. So.
That's right. Yeah.
So let me ask you this. Did you want to talk about the frontage tonight? Or are you postponing?
Yes, just to basically to cut to the chase, frontage, we're talking widening of the road, curbing and sidewalk. We would ask for deferrals of that. The question is, how does the planning commission view that?
Well, again, I don't know why you'd rip up Tillman Street to put curbing on an area where there's not curbing. Now, sidewalk's a buzzword here. I don't know where you'd put it. You got a pond in the front and there's a slope going down to the edge of the road. So I don't know where you'd install it. And if you'd install it to the rear of the pond, you're in your parking lot.
Right.
So, I mean, this comes up quite a bit here. And I guess you could go with the idea that it would be deferred if there's any improvements to Tillman Street in your frontage that would allow you to install sidewalk. I don't know how, I mean, I don't know how the rest of this board feels, but
Yeah, this is a difficult one because, my opinion, I would like sidewalk there. You know, the question is, can it be done? I mean, do we have Google Earth Street View where we can see the slopes and whatnot?
I
The
do know
front
that
page
there's
of the memo
sidewalk
has a aerial.
to the east where
But
the strip mall has it and it ends basically at this property.
And yeah, it's not. I know we've pulled in a lot of the deferrals in that area and we're trying to build a sidewalk network. So this is a tricky one.
Unfortunately.
As he's pulling it up, I can tell you there is a significant slope.
That's where it must
Now, the detention pond, there's a significant slope down to the shoulder of the road. So the sidewalk would be within that sloped area if you were going to stay off of the shoulder.
Yep, there you go.
We had a similar situation with the St. Luke's Orthopedic Hospital, and they actually built it on top of their slope, and then they
brought
configured
it into their property.
Yep.
Now, I can tell you that there is
It doesn't
sidewalk.
really show it quite like it.
There is sidewalk now to the east.
Yeah, Google Street View is now middle turning lane too, though. That's old, I guess.
Yeah, so we don't want the people walking on.
Jeez. Well, that was fortuitous.
It's not aligned with our goals.
I think that looks fine. I think that looks fine.
I think there's a bus stop.
What is she doing?
So people, well, there's also another one.
She's like right in the middle of your lane too.
This is a block away.
Through the light. So people do get off each bus stop to the, I'll say TV left and right.
It's hard to see.
So, and Lanta did comment that they would recommend the sidewalk. I don't know if it was recommend or request, or they would like to see the sidewalks there. Just talking to connectivity, where you see the row of trees, Tillman Square Shopping Center, they just put their sidewalks in based on a deferral request. And then if the sidewalks go in this frontage, it gets you to a signalized intersection with a signalized crossing.
And that's right.
Yeah. So that's an important consideration for this. Otherwise, it's essentially the only safe place across Tillman, and getting pedestrians there. I recognize that there's some grade issues and things that might make it difficult, but from a pedestrian safety perspective, having access to that signalized intersection is important.
I mean, are there any future plans in any of this 309 work and Bryant or Tillman Street work might know? Are any of these mast poles or anything, is anything going to be changed on those, taken back? Is there going to allow any?
I don't think they're up to this intersection.
Yeah, I don't think they go that far.
So that's the challenge. You can see how steep it is, and then there's a bunch of poles. You can't have the sidewalk going through the poles.
There's utility poles.
And now that the Maserati dealer is no longer there, we don't know what that future use is
Oh,
going
we
to be
do.
there.
Can't talk about it, but we do. It's a good thing for the community. We'll be coming back to you with that. I promise, Mr. Manhart.
Is there any room?
Thank you, Mr.
On
Bennett.
what would be like, I guess, the south side of your pond, between the pond and the parking lot, to wrap it behind the pond?
That's a possibility, Mark. To be honest with you, depending on how this conversation went, if there was a desire to put it in, we'd go back and take a closer look at it. But you brought up a good point. On that front side, you have the slope, the pond's right behind it. Is there a plateau in the back that you could come up around and back down? I don't know. We could look at that. That's
And otherwise, you're building concrete retaining walls to.
Yeah.
Well, that's what we would try to avoid
along
that.
the road,
right.
and then right up the sidewalk's right up against the curb. You know, someone's gonna trip and
you'd have to push everybody.
But I agree with the comment,
And then maybe
Dave
somehow get
Manhart,
them.
to,
don't
it's an important piece of connectivity to the intersection. It is one of the few places you can cross Tillman.
And I would say if, it sounds like with road widening and curving, you're okay. Sidewalk is a question, but maybe that's on a basis for us to go back to the drawing board and work with staff and see what we can come up with, if that's what the feeling is.
I think that makes sense. And
May I ask you a question? Will PennDOT's improvements due to the interchange that's changing, will that be affected up to this or not quite?
Probably not.
I
don't think so.
Does anybody know? Or?
I don't think the improvements go up to this, other than there could potentially be single timing associated with the whole corridor from Parkway all the way up to here, I believe. Does that sound right?
That sounds right. My understanding is they go to Citronia Road and do some improvements there, and then also on Broadway.
Okay.
That side of it, but I don't think they come this far down.
Yeah, that kind of makes sense.
Well, it'd be nice if they were doing that for us to agree to, give them whatever they wanted to do with sidewalks. Maybe they're going to change the grade, and that bridge looks like it's a different grade.
The bridge is a turnpike project. It's not a PennDOT project. Even though it's a PennDOT road, they're responsible for, they're widening the bridge in order to widen the turnpike. So that's the turnpike doing that. And you're correct. It is higher than the old bridge to get the correct clearance on the turnpike for the trucks. And so they will be reaching out pretty far for their approaches to get it up to the proper grade. They had to work a lot with the driveways for the businesses there to get that figured out. And the township was involved. We had to get our sewer lines off of that bridge. So there's a lot of work going on there. Yeah. That's why it's only going to go so far, because the turnpike is only doing what they have to do in coordination with PennDOT.
Thank you. We'll look forward to working with the township.
Well, thank you for your feedback. We'll be back in front of you before long, hopefully.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, we're on agenda item number 4C, Robert Rue subdivision. Mr. Manhart, would you like to do
Yes.
the staff presentation?
This is an application to subdivide the property located at 2442 Huckleberry Road. The plan proposes to subdivide the 4.596 acre parcel into Lot 1 containing the existing two-story dwelling, barn, and outbuilding on essentially 1 acre. Lot 2 containing 1.07 acres. Lot 3 containing essentially 1 acre. Lot 4 also containing an acre. All lots are proposed to be served by public water and private septic. The property is zoned R4 medium density residential. Robert H. Rue is the owner and applicant. So we've reviewed this plan. It was originally submitted in 2013. We are recommending approval based on the following conditions. Was everybody okay with the summary of conditions I gave the last time?
Okay, that's fine.
Okay.
Unless you see something controversial. Yeah.
That's right. I'll read the controversial ones. Prior to plan recording, the applicant shall execute subdivision improvement, security and maintenance, and indemnification agreements. The applicant shall address comments from the township engineer, township water and sewer engineer, township geotech consultant, public works department, public safety commission, parks and recreation board, landscape and shade tree commission, Community Development Department. The applicant shall obtain a letter from Lehigh County Conservation District approving the soil erosion and sedimentation control plan. Applicant shall obtain a letter from the Pennsylvania Department of Environmental Protection or LCCD approving the NEPDES permit. That the plan be amended to include a note referencing the state highway law. 13 is that the applicant contributes fee in lieu of parkland dedication. 14, the applicant shall pay water and allocation fees prior to plan recording. Payment of water tapping fees shall be tendered prior to building permit issuance. 15, that the applicant shall execute a declaration of covenants and easement for maintenance of stormwater management facilities for the right, but not the obligation for maintenance of the on-site stormwater management facilities. That the applicant shall dedicate to the township additional right-of-way along the two frontages of Huckleberry Road at a width acceptable to the township. Dedication shall occur prior to plan being recorded. "17, that the applicant shall dedicate to the township a blanket water utility easement to the township for accessing water facilities. 18, the applicant shall obtain stormwater easement in the Huckleberry Road right-of-way from the township for the purpose of storm sewer system as shown on the easement plan. Prior to plan recording, the applicant shall provide proof that the following easements as shown on the easement plan have been fully executed in a form acceptable to the township solicitor and the township shall not be obligated to issue a building permit until proof of recording is provided to the township. So the Rue Lutz cross access easement, Rue access and utility easement, a snow easement, stormwater easement, temporary construction easement for the westerly property. That the record plan shall include a signature block for the owners of the adjacent Lutz property. 21 is bills of sale. 22, applicant shall reconcile all open invoices. 23, plan be deemed clean prior to being presented to the Board of Commissioners.
Thank you. Ms. Bett, would you like to do the engineer presentation?
Sure. As mentioned in our November 7th memo to the township, a preliminary final land development review was performed by our office. As Dave noted, the initial plan submission for this project was back in 2013. Over this course of time, the applicant and township staff have continually coordinated for this project. Some comments to note from our memo pertain to coordination with the adjacent Lutz property, minor stormwater management comments, and survey comments related to easements and rights of way. As listed in the packet, the applicant has specifically listed the waiver and deferral requests for the private street and Huckleberry Road. Through the various plan iterations, we feel that this plan represents the preferred layout from past discussions between township staff, the applicant, and the engineer. We have no objection to the waivers requested for the private road. For Huckleberry Road, we recommend deferrals rather than waivers for cartway widening along lots 1 through 4. There is a small sliver of widening required to meet the half-width standard of 20 feet along lot 2. Along lots 3 and 4, the plan shows a deferred proposed curb and sidewalk placed at the location of where widening were to occur. We have no engineering objections to the remainder of the waivers and deferrals for Huckleberry Road. At this time, conditioned upon addressing the remaining comments contained in our memo, we can recommend engineering approval.
Thank you. All right, would the applicant like to do your presentation?
If I may, just a few words. Most of this is engineering, and a wise person knows their limits. My name is John Swartz. I'm an attorney from Prokop and Swartz in Fogelsville, helping the applicant this evening. And very well summarized, a lot of history on this plan. Mr. Manhart remembers, Mr. Adams back there remembers. I think he's here just because he couldn't believe it's here already. I'm sure you have a better reason than that for being here. Oh, good. Okay, fine. Wow. Yeah, this has just been it's a unique property. You can see it on the screen. We're working around property that we don't own, which is the Lutz property, and it's smack dab in the middle. So that created some unique challenges here, a lot of engineering challenges. The road has a curve in it. The Lutz house is very close to the road. So we had to overcome a lot and make a lot of decisions along the way to accommodate the concerns of township staff and to try to balance those concerns with my client's interest to generate what appeared to be three simple lots, in a R4 district property where you could put a lot of homes here, but it still had its challenges regardless, and that's just the way it is. So we're here this evening requesting preliminary and final approval. Of course, we've got a lot of waiver and deferral requests to review, so that'll take some time, and I'm going to defer those to either Alan Fornwalt or Alyssa Hiley from Keystone Consulting. I see Alan arrived. Thanks for coming, Alan. Okay. Yeah, Alan had something else. He couldn't be at two places at one time. And I have Robert Rue here, one of the owners. The Rue family owns the property. It's Robert and his siblings. Cynthia Smith is his sister. She's in the back. But yeah, I just wanted to reiterate, Aaron summarized the issues that had to be tackled here. Utilities, we spent a lot of years trying to figure out how to get water to this property. The roadway, the private road, you name it. So we're happy to be here. I don't necessarily have any objections to the conditions that were read unless anybody says otherwise. Mr. Rue? Okay. So I'm not here to complain about any of the conditions that have been put on this approval for conditional approval. And I'll turn it over to our engineering staff to talk about waivers or whatever you want to talk about next.
Good evening. Alan Fornwalt, as introduced with Keystone Consulting Engineers. Would you like me to go through the waivers and deferrals, or would you like me to?
I think that would be helpful.
Okay. Okay, so these waivers and deferrals, I know there's a number of them. Just again, the nuances of this property have made it difficult to conform to everything. So I kind of have it split up between two different categories. The first category, it relates to the driveway that comes into serves the properties. So the first one is curbs that are required on all public and private streets, which is section 11-32B1. So basically, this has to do with looking at I guess the plan isn't up, but it's not proposed to have a curb along the paved area. Number two, sidewalks should be installed along all these subdivisions, which again goes hand in hand with the curb that I just mentioned. So this is section 11-32C1A. Again, it's low volume. People could clearly walk on the driveway instead of a dedicated sidewalk. Number three, the cul-de-sac for this facility would have a right-of-way that's associated with it with a 52-foot radius and a curb radius of 40 feet. So a waiver is being requested for that for less dimension. What we have shown, we have demonstrated will allow a fire truck to turn around. Number four is the width of this driveway. Waiver from this requirement is requested as dimensional from the existing residential structures prohibit the full width that's required of 36 feet. So a 20 foot, cartway is proposed as the shared driveway. Number five is the private street right-of-way width, which goes hand in hand with the actual improvement of the access way. So it's variable in nature with a maximum of 58 feet, where a width of 60 feet is required. Number six would be the grading that would be typically required. Again, section 11-33D1A. This is basically a layout of a vertical transition of no more than 3-to-1 slope is being requested instead of the 3/8 inch per vertical foot that's required. Number seven, the center lines of existing streets. This is section 11-32A3E2, and this has to do with the offset, which is normally required of 400 feet with the next intersection. With the Joseph Circle dimension away from the proposed intersection is 347.59 feet. And again, this is kind of saddled between two existing intersections, and with the existing residential structures, it's impossible to meet the 400 feet. So those seven waivers requested have to do with the driveway that will be privately owned and maintained. The next section has to do with the frontage along Huckleberry Road, which is of course a public township roadway. So this is started off as number 8. So section 11-33B1 is the cartway requirements. waiver of this requirement. The ordinance requires a 40-foot wide cartway for collector streets. The eastern frontage, lots 3 and 4, is not contiguous. So we're proposing basically no widening there. Again, there's a steep slope. There's an out parcel with a residential building. And due to all the grading that would be required, it would just create a wider roadway in that area that might make the motorists feel that they have more room, they could speed up, and before they know it, it would be back to the existing conditions that were constrained.
Just to add, this is the waiver that we would recommend be a deferral. Sorry.
So yeah, it was requested as a waiver. Number 9, the cartway width, which is 11-33B1. So this is the same thing except the other 2 lots, which is lots 1 and 2. So here it's a transition from what's being proposed, the improvements from Ridge Farms next door, down to the existing the Lutz property, which is the out parcel in the middle of the property next to the driveway. So it's a taper that we're proposing that starts off at 20 feet and goes down to 16 feet when the ordinance requires 40 feet. And there was a lot of discussion with us with the township engineer, and this is what we had settled on to be what we believe to be the safest configuration for the roadway. Number 10 is section 11-32C1A. Sidewalks are required with a 5-foot width along collector streets, most importantly at a location 1 foot inside of the right-of-way line. Now, this is in relation to the frontage of lots 1 and 2. Again, the roadway widening is at a taper. So with the roadway being tapered, the sidewalk ends up not being able to conform to that right-of-way offset as well. Number 11, which is section 11-33D1A, the grading between the curb and the right-of-way line, no greater than 3/8 of an inch vertical per foot horizontal. And this applies to all the lots. So a waiver is requested to go no steeper than 1 foot vertically for every 4 horizontal feet. Again, this is due to the with the existing structures and the area topography that we're trying to tie into. And then we had requested deferrals, which are noted as number 12 and number 13. Number 12, section 11-32C1A, sidewalks, again, with their location 1 foot inside the right-of-way line, and this is related to the frontage on lots 3 and 4. So this section has a sidewalk shown on the plan, but it's between an existing out parcel with a residential structure and another residential lot that I don't believe has any plan to have any sidewalk there. So it would literally be a very short section of sidewalk to nowhere. So a deferral is requested there. Number 13, which is section 11-32B1, curbs are required along all public and private streets. Again, this is in relation to the frontage of lots 3 and 4. Deferral is being requested along with the sidewalks due to the constraints that I just mentioned about the sidewalks.
Thank you. All right, do we have any questions or comments, or do we want to start going through the waivers and discussing them?
I just had one question in the engineer's letter for waiver number D, letter D. The 20-foot cartway consideration should be given for on-street parking restriction. Has that been discussed with the applicant?
This was in addition to our letter for this iteration. Given the 20-foot cartway width, we were thinking about if a car was parked on the street, how would that be handled with a shared driveway or a street? So it's just a consideration that the PC may want to consider. But if you have more to add to how that will be addressed as far as the private street would go, be helpful.
So I think that would probably be best handled by John. But my thoughts are that there are legal agreements that are set up between the different lots to basically preclude blockage in any manner of ingress and egress, which I think would be covering, if someone decide to park on the paved cartway.
And it's addressed in the cross-access easements that are in place. So all the lot owners have to keep keep the driveway open and free for access. Especially, it came up for deliveries. That was a big question. Delivery trucks, Amazon trucks are everywhere now. So got to get those through.
So to clarify, there will be parking on the street?
No.
No, it will not be.
Okay.
As a deed covenant that the owners would have to enforce. Obviously, if someone were continuously parking there, another property owner could enforce that to move the car or something. But the idea is to not have parking occur on that private street.
So my thoughts go to emergency services if there's a need for a fire truck or an ambulance to go down that road and there are cars parked with the 20-foot cartway. Is that something that you'd be amenable to restrict parking except for stopping for deliveries or?
Yeah, I mean, everything's being set up that, parking will not be tolerated on the cartway, so.
Where will your garbage be collected? Is it going to be collected on the
I
private
believe it's
street?
all going to be collected on Huckleberry, isn't it?
It is now.
Yeah.
So that was a question. I think that really boils down to what the township carrier that is currently in place that I think changed the end of last year would prefer to do. But, everything else is picked up along Huckleberry.
Yes.
So anything along those lines would certainly be in concert with the way it would be now. But if the township collector garbage collection service would want to come up the driveway, I don't think there would be any opposition. There wouldn't be any opposition to it. And it's no larger than the fire truck that we showed on the plan.
The only reason I ask is because in one of the previous meetings, and I've been here since day one of this project, so I appreciate Greg being in the audience. If there's garbage collection going on and everybody's allowed 4 toters to recycle to garbage, and then you could have yard waste. If there's a queuing issue with trying to get around a truck that's collecting garbage on Huckleberry, with school buses trying to get to Kratzer Elementary and that kind of stuff, I would prefer that the truck goes into the cul-de-sac and building on Commissioner Kelly's comments about access. And I think the township and the carrier and the applicant can all work together to make that happen. So I would prefer to see it that way, but that's just me. I'm just one of 7.
I don't think we would have any objection to that. It's a matter of working with the carrier too. I think they have certain rules about certain things, but we would happily accommodate that.
The garbage truck turning templates are included in the plan, so it can get up in there.
That's where I saw it, and so I was like, that's why I brought up the question. So, and I think it just leads to sometimes when they're off out of sight, people just leave them out there. So, thank you.
Sure. Yeah, I think it'd be safer if they drove up the private drive to collect the trash versus having a row of trash cans out on Huckleberry with big items.
Yeah, I mean, just the same, they have the mailbox, a 4-unit clustered mailbox within the cul-de-sac.
Yeah.
So mail deliveries coming in there. So I have a question, just so I understand this correctly. Lot 3, it continues with a 20-foot wide sliver that extends out to a bump out at Huckleberry?
Yes, that
Can you
counts.
pull the plan up
that would be
on the screen?
Is that in order to get the public water?
No, actually, it ended up having nothing to do with the public water, but rather that in the discussions with the township throughout everything, that actually is the legal frontage for that lot onto Huckleberry. Yeah, so if you pull the image down. Yeah, there you go. Is that that's what you're referring to with lot 3 up there with its frontage along?
Correct.
Meets Saldo, right?
Yes.
It meets the road.
Yeah. The result of regulations.
Requirement.
Yeah, so.
Yeah, there was a lot of discussion about that.
It's off to the right there. There it is. Yeah.
Right there. That's what this 80 feet. That would be 80 feet road frontage. So no, it would have been a variance.
I'm just forecasting into the future. There's 2 unnamed quasi-private, maybe public roadways that dead end into this area that run right into that 20-foot line there. It's going to be private landowner, property owner disputes in the future, but the one is Roosevelt and the other one's unnamed. It's used as a driveway, I believe.
So there was also a lot of discussion over the
If you
duration
want
of.
to come up to the microphone, you can.
Yeah, I was just going to interject that there was a lot of discussion about this, for even extension of utilities, and enough time has gone by that I believe the township's stance was that there really isn't any current rights that the township would have or would access or would wish to access to have anything public in nature go across there. So the attorneys could, qualify or discuss what would happen with that. But I think probably there's a good chance that half of each of those could be claimed by either of the neighbors.
Most likely. We would not have any claim to those roads, but we did explore the roads for a possible way of running those water lines in a more efficient fashion, but it just, we could not find any rights that we would have at all to those roads. So there they sit.
How are you dealing with your stormwater infiltration rates? I saw they were pretty high, above normally what the DEP.
We had our geotech engineer look at it, and we're going to be using an engineered sand to try and slow the rates down. We had numerous discussions with the Conservation District, and we agreed on a design rate of 2.5 inches per hour, kind of being the worst case scenario because we got rates anywhere from 15 to 20 inches an hour. So
Yeah, I saw some 30s on there.
yeah, so DEP's on board with it. We're through admin complete. We're going through our first round of technical for the NPS permit. And, they've already looked at it. Kim Ziegler has looked at it extensively. She does their infiltration stuff. And
If Kim's happy, I think we can be happy.
yeah. So yeah, we're going to try and slow the rates down. And these were designed, the underground facilities do not have any surface runoff, even in the 100-year storm. They have an emergency overflow in case something would happen, but we're able to take a lot of the surface water, put it into the ground, and hopefully not create any problems along Huckleberry Road.
Got it. Thanks.
Mm-hmm.
Any other questions about anyone in the public? Is your opportunity. Come to the podium to state your name and address.
Hi, my name's Leslie Thompson-Strack. I'm at 2417 Euclid Street. I'm sorry for my outburst earlier. I should have not done that without the microphone. But yeah, I'm actually the house, right? You can kind of see it with the unnamed street. That's Euclid. That's my driveway where it kind of meets that little narrow part of lot 4 or lot 3. But I mean, I just want to confirm they're not actually going to do anything with that. It's just going to be grass there. They're not tying into our property or anything. That's how I understood it. Yeah, it's just, the other thing I also wanted to confirm, I know they're having that rain garden in, like, kind of like in lot 4 to the northeast of our property. And I assume that's where most of the stormwater runoff's going to go. We wouldn't expect anything to come into our property at all. Or, because my house is pretty close to where the construction's going.
Can we flip to a plan that shows the, looks like an underground seepage pit?
Yeah, I can tell you there's a lot of people that are reviewing their plans to make sure that their water does not get to your property.
Yeah, I figured it was, I just wanted to double check again, just to make sure, because it seemed like it was going more to up the other way, but what about coming down to the corner of where my house is? Is it going to all be directed that way? There wouldn't be anything coming straight down for our slightly downslope from them.
Yeah, we designed it. We are mitigating the stormwater to more than what the requirements are for the release rates.
Okay.
These are underground facilities, so you won't see them.
Yeah.
The other thing is we do have a lot of collection swales in front of them that directs water to an inlet conveyance system to each one of these facilities as well.
Okay.
And we did have to look at numerous study points on the site to make sure that we were not going to increase rate or volume towards any property. I know I had a conversation with Tony Tellerita back in the day about making sure the overflow for these, in case there ever was a discharge, was not directed towards any dwellings as well.
Okay. Thank you. Yeah, I assumed, I just wanted to make sure. And I had another question not directly related to this part. Is that okay? So I just also was curious, are you going to be taking down any trees like near our property line, like where the house is?
Yeah, so for the large part, there's really not anything that's proposed, to be removed right along the property line with you there. The disturbance would be, to put the underground stormwater facilities in and the sanitary septic bed. But that's all, not the lot 3 that comes back with that 20-foot wide. It's even across, away from that. So there won't be anything really grading wise going on probably within 30 feet of your property.
Because it seemed like there might be the septic areas kind of right above my property is. So would they be cutting down trees for that?
So yeah, but again, that's going to be at least 30 feet away from your property. There might be a couple of trees there that need to be taken down.
Okay.
The other thing to note is that there's actually 2 septic systems that are shown on there. One is the primary that would be installed, and the other one is just a reservation. If that one fails in the future, that there's land set aside for the other one. So the one on the upper right in that view is not even going to be intended of being constructed probably for 40 plus years until the other one would fail.
Yeah, I just had a little concern because a couple of years ago there was a tree taken down near my neighbor Leroy Martin's house, and it fell on his house. I just want to make sure nothing followed my property. That they would use a different company or something to do the trees.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
So, the good concern. I wouldn't want trees falling on mine as well.
Yeah, we just got a new roof set up too. That's all my concerns as well. So they would use a different prop to take the trees down than the previous tree person. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. All right, is there anyone else in the audience or is there anyone online? All right. Yeah, I believe if there's no other discussion, I believe we need to go through the waivers.
Would you prefer to have the township engineers waiver list or the applicant's request shown on the screen?
Yeah, this one's got it.
Okay.
So we want to have a discussion about any of them. The first one as previously mentioned, is for the private cul-de-sac street waiver from curb. Any additional discussion? Does anyone want to?
I'll make a motion to approve.
Second.
Those in favor?
Aye.
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 Aye. Any opposed? None opposed. So moved. Second one is Saldo 1132C1A, waiver from the requirement of providing sidewalks within a subdivision due to low traffic volumes.
And this is for the private street. All these are for the private.
This is for a private street.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? None opposed. So moved. Waiver request C, Saldo section 1132A2C. Waiver from the requirement of a cul-de-sac having a right-of-way radius of 52 feet and a 40-foot radius. We defer a 42-foot radius access easement is proposed and a 30-foot radius is proposed.
I would be willing to grant the Saldo 1132A2C, assuming that the fire marshal gives a thumbs up on the turning templates.
I'll second that.
Those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? None opposed. So moved. Waiver request from Saldo 1133C1, waiver from the requirement of the private street width being 36 feet. A 20-foot cartway is proposed.
I'd make a motion if we would also include a restriction on on-street parking.
Additionally, to work with the refuse and garbage and recycling carriers.
Emergency services.
I'll second that.
Discussion.
Yeah.
Is there the option to have signage in there? Yeah.
I mean, I think you probably just need 2 signs, one in each direction that says no street parking.
No parking.
Yeah. Would the applicant be willing to do that? Just install, maybe determined by the township engineer and your engineer, that what would suffice, 1 or 2 signs on either side of the road that say on-street parking prohibited, something to that extent. Yeah.
Your residents will know, but a visitor might not.
Right. That's a good point.
For now.
You never know in 40, 50 years.
Right.
Can we clarify all the conditions on that particular waiver request, please?
So I think we can probably sum it up by saying we would be in favor of the waiver from Saldo 1133C1 with respect to a 20-foot proposed cartway if the applicant is willing to put the no parking or no on-street parking signs within the cul-de-sac.
In consultation with the engineer.
In consultation with his engineer and our engineer. Right.
Is that sufficient?
And further conditioned on working with the trash company, did I hear that correctly? And emergency services, was all that supposed to be part of the
I don't know if it's part
condition?
of that waiver.
The truck turning templates were included for both of those vehicles.
Yeah.
Yes.
If we restrict the parking, then I don't think the other,
Be fine.
the other guys won't have a problem.
I agree. Yeah.
That was your
Need to have
Yes,
that.
was my motion. And I guess my only other question, you had mentioned that the individual deeds for each home will have a restriction. So is that already included in part of our record as well as township record?
It will show up in one of the easements that Jennifer and I are kicking around. It's
Very good.
part of one of
As
those
long as it's
easements.
memorialized.
We've got a lot of easements everywhere. I know it's in there, but we'll make sure it is.
Very good.
We'll assure you that.
If you could point out where that is, in which particular document, that would be super.
I will. At this moment? Oh, good. I will show you. I'll make a note of it. Yes, okay. Thank you. I will gladly do that.
we have a motion and a second.
Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? None opposed, so moved. All right, waiver request E, Saldo, section 1133C1, waiver from the requirement of the private street right-of-way being 60 feet. A 58-foot maximum right-of-way is proposed.
So moved.
Second.
Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? None opposed, so moved. Next, Saldo waiver request, Saldo section 1133D1A, waiver from the requirement that grading of the right-of-way outside of the cartway be a maximum slope of 3/8 inch vertical per 1 foot horizontal. A proposed grade of 1 foot vertical to 3 feet horizontal is proposed due to conflicts with existing structures. I'll second it. Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? None opposed, so moved. Saldo waiver request from Saldo section 1132A3E II. Waiver from the requirement of center lines of intersecting streets being a minimum offset of 400 feet.
So moved.
Second.
Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? None opposed, so moved. All right, we're on to the waiver request for Huckleberry Road. Now, H is a deferral request. Right, can the applicant confirm?
It's a waiver request. Your engineering staff sounds to me like would prefer a deferral.
Yes. We would recommend a deferral for this one.
All right, so this would be a deferral from Saldo section 1133B1, deferral from the requirement to widen Huckleberry Road to 40 feet across the frontage of lots 3 and 4, and no widening curb or sidewalk is proposed along the eastern frontage.
Motion to defer.
Second.
Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Aye. Those opposed? None opposed, so moved. Once again, this is another deferral request.
Waiver request, engineering staff would prefer a deferral.
That's correct.
Correct, Aaron? All right.
So a deferral from section 1133B1, deferral from the requirement to widen Huckleberry Road to 40 feet across frontage of lots 1 and 2. A 20-foot half width is currently proposed with a 4-foot taper to the private street.
Motion to defer.
Second.
Those in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Opposed? None opposed. So moved. This deferral request. What? Oh, waiver. Okay. All right.
Back to waivers.
Back to waivers. All right. Letter J. Waiver from Saldo section 1132C1A. Waiver from the requirement of providing 5-foot sidewalks, 1 foot inside the right-of-way at frontage of lots 1 and 2. The proposed sidewalk is 4 feet wide and located 7 to 8 feet inside the right-of-way line.
I'll make that motion, and I want to make a comment that it still meets ADA requirements because the ADA is 3 feet.
I'll second.
Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? None opposed, so moved. Waiver request K. Waiver request from Saldo section 1133D1A. Waiver from the requirement that grading of the right-of-way outside of cartway be a maximum slope of 3/8 inch vertical per 1 foot horizontal. A proposed grade of 1 foot vertical to 4 feet horizontal is proposed due to the existing structure.
So moved.
Second.
Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? None opposed, so moved. Waiver request L, a waiver request from Saldo, section 1132C1A.
Steve,
Sorry.
deferral.
Back to deferrals.
Back to deferrals again.
Please
Sorry.
strike
We're all over the place, yeah.
what I just said.
But this started as a deferral. and
Yeah, so this is a deferral, letter L. So a deferral from Saldo, section 1132C1A. Deferral from the requirement of providing sidewalk along the frontage of lots 3 and 4. A deferral is requested due to inability to connect the sidewalk or other sidewalk facilities.
I'll make a motion.
Second.
Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? None opposed, so moved. Deferral request M, a deferral from Saldo section 1132B1. Deferral from the requirement of providing curb along all public and private streets. The applicant requests a deferral from providing curb along the frontage of lots 3 and 4.
So moved.
Second.
Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? None opposed, so moved. All right, so those are the waivers and deferrals. Is there anything else?
One comment, we're looking for some guidance from the board, and this relates to the November 5th comments from the Landscape and Shade Tree Commission. Alan Fornwalt and I were trying to figure this one out, and this may be something we can handle, through engineering or whatever, but I don't know if you have the comment. There it is. These are for trees that will be planted. They apparently want them moved to another location, the ones near the certain inlets that are listed.
All right, top of my head, I don't recall and they would have been requested to be removed if there was a construction conflict, if the tree was on top of the inlet or like right next to it. So I forget what the exact situation was.
I think the comment came from the shade trees were spaced initially before the additional inlets were placed there. I believe the additional inlets were subject from a review of this year, and the shade trees initially were probably several years ago. So the comment was that one of the shade trees was directly in between two of those additional proposed inlets, and the recommendation is to move that one, and if so, instead of just removing it and having a gap, to adjust the spacing of the existing trees.
So I guess my question is, what does this commission, what would you guys like to see? Because I think we're going to be removing probably 3 or 4 street trees. Would you like them in another row kind of back further? Or where would you like to see them be relocated?
Do we have a landscaping plan?
Alan, do you know offhand what sheet the landscape plan is? Thank you.
Yeah. There it is.
I think these were this was specifically the tree in question, so.
Okay, so there looks to be one, maybe, right where you see like the 453 contour label, that tree might be a little close to the pipe, so maybe just shift it back a bit.
I was going to say, I'd rather just kind of move that one just a few feet so that it's not really noticeable, rather than taking out half the trees.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yep.
I just wanted to make sure that you guys were on board with that.
Yeah, and I think it's just related to
avoiding construction
Conflict with the root
conflicts.
zone in the ball to
Yeah,
where the
so-
underground structure is.
I think just, I think that's something you could probably work out with. Yeah, it's nothing major.
We understand that there's construction items that obviously things have to be moved. Everything's not going to be equal. So the only thing we would recommend is to keep it within the right of way. So a street tree easement wouldn't have to be required.
What I'd like to do is take that tree and move it,
Slide
just slide it to my right a little bit. And as long as, for the record, you guys are okay with that being a
Yeah.
solution for what the Shade Tree Commission identified as something bigger, we're okay then.
I'm actually on the shade tree.
Oh, you are? Okay, I'm sorry. I just wanted to, I didn't want to remove half the trees and try to find some place to put them.
Yeah.
I think it's going to look a lot nicer if we just kind of shift that one subtly.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Thank you. I don't think we had anything else that we needed any guidance on, did we, Alan? No?
I think we just need one last thing.
We were just, unless there are any questions, we're going to request preliminary and final approval.
All right, does someone want to?
Since I started this in 2013, I've been on this board since 2010.
Wow.
I will make a motion to approve or recommend to the Board of Commissioners preliminary final approval,
Subject to,
subject to the commission. We just all went through.
I'll second that.
All right, those in favor? Aye. Those opposed? None opposed? So moved. Congratulations.
Thank you. Next to Mr. Rue and Mr. Adams, I'm going to congratulate you, Mr. Height, on this application. Thank you.
Greg and I have done a long journey together on this one.
I believe it.
Luck
I
with your
believe it.
plan.
Thank you again. I'll be in touch, Jennifer. Thanks. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good luck, Mr. Rue.
I feel like Greg Adams should come to the microphone and say something about this plan.
To be honest, I was hoping that they would let me reach the shop.
All right, thank you. Good seeing you, Greg. All right, we're on agenda item number 5, transportation infrastructure update.
Sure. The Route 309 and Tillman Interchange Project reallocated funds as part of the August redistribution. And since our last meeting, the 2025 to 2028 TIP is now in effect. There was an amendment that took place, and it amended the Route 309 Tillman Interchange Project to kind of redistribute from funds from the August redistribution. So kind of working the way through there. Brian, have anything to add for that?
Well, the August
When's it going?
redistribution is funding that wasn't necessarily used by various projects across the country, and PennDOT's very good about grabbing available funds to obligate it to a project now. So it's not like we got a whole bunch of additional money. We were just able to move it and accelerate that phase of the project. And we were also able to split out the demolition that has to occur fiscal year 24. So it happens every August. This year, we were fortunate to get 20-some million out of it. I hope to move that project along.
So when is that going to happen again? I mean, when are we going to see what I'm considering Armageddon when that happens?
There's actually stuff going on now. If you go, I forget the name of the road, it runs parallel to Tillman.
Broadway.
No, next to Parkway Manor, you know, that little cul-de-sac.
Oh, right.
If you drive back there,
that
you'll
little
see
one.
some preliminary work going on.
Heather Court.
That's part of the demolition.
It's Heather Court.
Yeah, you're right. Heather Court. Yeah.
What do they do? It's like is it gas main they're putting in back there?
They got to move a gas line. That's what delayed this project a little bit. The as-builts were a little off. That's all I'll say on that one. And they're hoping this summer, coming up, 25, all things considered.
Looking forward to that. Okay.
If you haven't seen the plans, it's quite impressive how they're changing the ramps that we all realize are too short. They're building a third lane on southbound, northbound on 309 from the Interstate 78 split to just about 22.
Yeah, I've seen the final plan. The final plan looks great. It's the in-between plan that I'm worried about.
Does the township have copies of the plan?
We have old versions.
Or fresh
Yeah,
version on the
ultimately, it's going to be great when it gets done.
Yeah.
I will ask. I don't want to promise anything, but I've seen it.
Yeah, I have seen it.
Dave or Chris, do you have anything to add for the transportation update?
From a transportation planning perspective, we are wrapping up the first phase of our comprehensive transportation plan. This is dealing with the active transportation network and the safety action plan, identifying safety corridors in the township. We hope to have that out to the steering committee in the next month and then talk about a public review of that. We have recently released an RFQ for the second phase of that transportation plan, which looks at traffic congestion, reclassification of roadways, and truck routes, and our kind of preferred freight network in the township. So we're hoping to dive right into some of that. That's more data focused and development of or identification of roadways that we can look at some recommendations for. I'm happy to announce, coming from the safety action plan, one of the highest priorities in there was the Hamilton corridor, Lincoln Avenue down to Cedar Crest Boulevard in front of Dorney Park. The township received an LSA grant through Department of Community and Economic Development to conduct a road safety audit on that section of roadway. So we're excited to kind of start to get into that, working with PennDOT, LVPC, Dorney Park, and our neighboring municipalities on how we can look at identifying potential solutions for that pretty problematic corridor that has been a major issue for a long time.
I guess that will, because I know Dorney Park put that plan together for the sidewalk. So is that something that?
It's that's one kind of component to a very complex issue. So the road safety audit, the idea is to look at all of the factors of where traffic is coming in, both sides of that corridor beyond just what Dorney Park owns, the roadway itself, the geometry of the roadway, how it's set up currently, and try to figure out what potential solutions could be and start to identify where we go for engineering.
The road reclassification, are
Yes.
you looking at township and state routes?
No, this is just a great question. So this would just be township roads, and specifically the goal for this is looking at our local roads. We're experimenting with the kind of combination of looking at updating the functional classification, which I believe it's probably been since maybe 2009 was the last time we updated our functional class, and then applying a context-based character classification to that looks at surrounding land use and the existing conditions of the roadway to differentiate between maybe what would be a collector in our suburban area or our commercial areas to say our rural areas, with the hope that this gives us some guidance to update saldo in the future to differentiate roadways where appropriate.
Got it. All the state routes in Lehigh and Northampton County will be done next year. Now that we got our new urbanized area approved by federal highways, and that affects classifications of roads. And I don't want to bore everybody, but it's good that it's kind of synergy at the same time.
We are very excited to be ready to go when the regional assessment is going as well. That's all I have.
All right. Agenda item number 6, 2025 meeting dates.
So I left a copy of a calendar at everyone's spot.
Yes. Why are there 2 dates in
May?
So that we have the meeting. We've selected the second Thursday, and the idea behind the second Thursday was that it fell in between the 2 BOC meetings. The only conflict we had was in May. Second Thursday is right after the BOC meeting. So the question I have is, should we move it to the 15th so it falls in between, or are we okay with that
What would
one
staff
conflict?
What would you guys prefer?
You're the guys that got to get it all together. We just show up.
It seems like it's always busy, so I don't know. It matters.
I could do either.
It's nice to have it in between.
Do it in between.
I-
That's
I
fine.
would-
Okay.
Yeah, instead of having staff 2 nights in a row.
I'll be out of town.
Okay.
All right, so
Okay.
15th,
The next meeting, I'll have that all prepared for
May 15th.
for review and approval if we need that.
All right, agenda item number 7, courtesy of the floor.
So just to get a little clarification on the reading of conditions, was everybody okay with how I handled it tonight? We're just kind of summarizing and reading in more detail some of the other more.
I'm fine with that.
Okay.
For our typical procedural ones, anything, like I said, that's controversial or out of the ordinary, I think we should go into a little bit more depth. And then I think we should also have the waiver of various Staldo stuff in the.
Yeah, I think we're going to add the waivers and even the review letters.
Because I
read them
at home. And
yeah.
I thought.
I think including the plans, I think is where, because when we shrink them down, it's not even worth
Yeah,
having,
if we can look at the plans on the
Yeah.
screen, but it's tough when we're going through the comments and the
Mhm.
waivers.
And
To
then you got-
locate it on the, because if we don't have the plan showing, it's difficult to place.
And where
Yeah.
we run into a conflict sometimes is they read their letter. And then
I was
we're
just,
looking at-
that was one of my notes, and we'll work with Pidcock to make sure that they use letters, and we'll have like some annotation that says the applicant number.
Yeah, we
Something
can
like
kind of make it
He was going off.
helpful to
Yeah.
be consistent, so it's not confusing.
I was.
Yeah, A1, B2.
We can summarize. I guess we could summarize the waivers as well, because I know in the past, and I forget who it was tonight, but sometimes there'll be older waivers. And then I don't know if they're always submitted again in the updated waiver letters. Yeah, we can bundle them into the memo itself, and we can work with Pidcock on that.
I think it just depends on, how the project's presented, such as phases.
Okay.
But we could work together on piecing it to have a more cohesive, easy to read document.
Okay.
The other thing I have is the applications received for next meeting. We have Pediatric Cancer Foundation of the Lehigh Valley has come in. They are located on Cracker Sport Road, kind of across from the former Vivo.
The dead end.
At the dead
Yeah.
end, yes.
They just moved there.
What's that?
They just moved there, if I'm not
Yes,
mistaken.
they did.
Right across the street from the tequila place. Yeah. Makes
Yeah.
sense.
They're doing a expansion, like a all-purpose room expansion. We also have a subdivision at the Roma building, so they're subdividing off a piece of their property. And a sketch plan review for 3900 Orfield Road. So it's in between, and I think that's Pheasant Hills or part of Pheasant Hills. There's a big vacant.
Is that the 28 acres that was
28
just went up for
acres.
sale?
They're
825.
actually proposing a conservation subdivision. So it's like 15 lots with, I think, 10 acres or so of open space. So that they're coming in with the sketch plan on that.
I'm assuming that they're connecting to existing stub streets rather than trying to come out.
Some of them, yes.
Yeah. That's a tough intersection to come down to.
Yep.
Yeah.
That should be our December agenda. There might be a couple other odds and ends that might appear there, but. for the
Election
most
of
part.
officers.
What's that?
The election of officers always happens in December.
Okay, thank you.
Not as exciting as the last
Greg, is there
one.
anything else
Such a
that happened?
I expect fierce ads for the next month. Text me too every day, please.
Poly market survey.
All right, anyone else? All right, agenda item number 8.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Those in favor?
Aye.
So moved.